still grieving. And some days love turns to rage. Yeah, let's move on and be better.
Welcome everyone.
Yeah, let's move through the basket
We're so thankful that all of you joined us tonight live here on Mobile Cause. These past 20 or so months have truly changed how we can be together, and I'm thankful that each of you who joined tonight from your own.
To share with you the powerful impact of clients through transformational programming, thoughtful and compassionate care, and support for the full family.
And to share ways you can continue to. This event is a fundraiser aimed at gathering DAP's biggest champions to garner the resources needed to impact DAP's program participants.
Our goal is to raise more than $150,000 for the therapy, advocacy, and case management services at DAP. For more than 40 years, DAP has been a leader in the cause to end domestic violence.
Its intergenerational and full family approach to trauma-informed care stops domestic violence from continuing while supporting the healing of each member of the family.
What could be more transformational than that?
Yeah, and that's why we need all of your support. These funds unite us in healing our families, our community.
On that note, I think it's time to introduce you to Domestic Abuse Project's Executive Director, Arethane Keefe. You may know Arethane from her years at DAP as the Director of Client Services, supporting the full programming of the organization as a mental health practitioner and program developer. She's been integral to the overall growth of the organization, and this past April became our Executive Director, knowing that she'll be leading DAP into its next phase aimed at impact and equity.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Shayla. I'd like to take a moment to offer up some gratitude. Thank you to our sponsors for ensuring that every dollar raised tonight goes directly to ending domestic violence. Thank you to Gustafson Glick, Kelly Vosberg, Dave Murphy, and Love Conquers Violence. These partners sponsored us at $10,000 or more to help make tonight possible. I would also like to thank Hook and Ladder Theater and Lounge, Western National Insurance, Securian Financial, the Perkins Family Foundation, and Piper Jaffray. Thank you for your sponsorship. We are grateful to each of you for joining us tonight and considering a gift in support of our programs, and more importantly, our families. Thank you to our DAP team. Your courage, conviction, and heart makes the difference for our program participants and our communities, and I am grateful for each and every one of you. I am so appreciative of our board of directors, our volunteers, and those that helped make tonight relevant with their voices and stories, especially Liz, Jesse, and Obadiah. I'd like to give a special shout out to our Volunteer Advancement Committee members, Mickey O'Kane, Susan Johnson, Barb Levy, Martha Ginder, Amy Ricciardi, Kristen Crabtree, and Just Wiley for your time and investment in DAP, which has been plentiful. So with that, let's get into why we're here tonight. I want to introduce our first storyteller. Liz is a young woman who struggled to find stability after fleeing domestic violence. She found restoration and connection to herself and to other victim survivors through her participation in our Women of Color group.
In my previous relationship, I felt a ton of fear. I felt scared for my life at times, and leaving didn't feel like an option. There was a lot of power over that my previous partner had over me, whether it was a threat to come find me if I left, or saying that he'll say things or blast me publicly. I noticed later on, after leaving the relationship, how strong I was allowing that power over me to leave. Then COVID happened, and that made it even harder. I left my previous partner right at the tip of the iceberg when COVID first started. I found myself scrambling to find secure housing, and I found myself very scared, which in turn had me running back multiple times. And I never wanted to go back, but I did because of the fear of not being able to have a roof over my head, or to be able to have food, or any of those essentials that we all freak out about sometimes. The person who influenced me strongly and the most would be my facilitator, Tamina. Even though I was in a group that was virtual and I met during COVID, the amount of love and tenderness and goddess strong woman that Tanina is, to hold such a container for women who are struggling and may not have a voice, has been such a wonderful experience for me. When I look at the group that I was in, and when I looked at Tanina, I saw me in her, which helped me so much to navigate and move forward and to find ways to have purpose. What I love most about Tanina is her willingness to be with you individually and with the collective. DAP brings you from victim to victor. So not only are you experiencing what you've gone through and being able to talk about that with a collective of individuals that are able to help you navigate through it, but also there are so many tools that I experienced throughout each week that we got together about how I can take accountability for in areas and ways that I created scenarios. So it isn't taking away the story from the individual, it's also giving the individual, such as myself and the others that I participated with, such great tools and building blocks to be able to help them in their journey. What I love about DAP is it helps individuals recreate healthy boundaries, recreate self-love, recreate self-care, and to really find yourself again.
I'm so grateful for Liz and sharing her story and having the privilege to work with her. Of course, we asked you to join us tonight to listen to some stories because stories like Liz help us learn and realize that this work matters. Our impact matters. DAP's impact is rooted in creating opportunities for program participants to conquer abuse and work towards experiencing safety. Safety is a luxury, and we have to remember that all humans deserve to feel safe, no matter the color of their skin, sexual orientation, or geographical location. So if you're able to give tonight to help heal families and create a safety for all, we need you to join us in supporting this work. Your generous donations provide accessible, trauma-informed care for individuals who've experienced domestic violence. We've made it as easy as possible tonight. To donate and support program participants like Liz, text HEALING 2021 to 41444. That's HEALING 2021 to 41444. You can also donate online at tinyurl.com/DAPHealing2021. If you're watching on Mobile Cause, click the donate button below for this video to donate now. If you're interested in donating stock, utilizing a donor-advised fund, or connecting us with your company for a corporate match, please visit us at our website, www.mndap.org/donate for more information about how to utilize those donor options. Thank you for your time and what you've given us tonight.
Hi, I'm Amy Ricciardi, the current board chair at the Domestic Abuse Project.
Hello, and I'm Aaron Brown, a member of the board of directors at the Domestic Abuse Project. In addition, about 20 years ago, at the age of 9, I was a client with DAP's youth program. For those who aren't familiar, the youth program involves various forms of therapy and support to youth in our community that have witnessed or experienced domestic violence at their homes. Because of my experience with DAP, I'm committed to DAP's mission of building communities free from violence and providing holistic healing for every member of the family. Please help us obtain our goal this evening of raising $150,000. Thank you so much.
I'm excited to share with you that two of our most thoughtful donors, Kelly Bosberg and Dave Murphy, have agreed to match contributions tonight up to $15,000. What that means is any donation made will be able to double our impact in the community served by the organization. As we introduce the next story, please take a moment to think about how your generosity will impact the clients DAP serves.
My husband was arrested for domestic violence April 1st, 2020, and I had looked for resources for myself and my children to get counseling, and it was early COVID, so there were like no resources. I was in a circumstance where my husband was home with me all the time. And my coping mechanism before was to feel fine when he was out of the house or at work. So I had some space, but now it was just me and him and the kids in the house. No one could leave. And yeah, it's just, I don't even like thinking about it. It's just a feeling of claustrophobia. Your partner can make you feel like there isn't any help for you, that no one will listen to you, that no one understands you. And so there's just a huge amount of validation and self-esteem building and healing that comes from just talking and being with other survivors, especially when you have shared common experience from the frustration and difficulty it is in making dinner or needing space from your children, especially during COVID and when there was virtual learning at home. I felt like we were all sort of stuck in the house with our kids like all day while we were trying to heal and also deal with courts and police. So it was just nice to have time to share those thoughts and frustrations and feelings. And I did the survivors course, which made a huge difference in my life, made it so that I didn't feel so isolated, and really grew and changed a lot from the curriculum. And then there were resources for my children to have counseling, which I don't know of any other place where children who've experienced domestic abuse in the household can get counseling. And all of it was free. And anytime I needed to call any of the counselors or had a question, I was helped pretty immediately, even with things like I had some financial questions and legal questions, and DAP made sure that I had the resources to find that. When DAP decided to restart those virtual services, my children participated in a support group for other kids who'd experienced domestic violence, and it was via Zoom, which was pretty funny. So because the first part was like the parents were there and the kids would put like filters on themselves to look like dogs and puppies and sing songs. So but the counselors were really good at helping the children relax. And I think my daughters were scared that they would be talking directly about really personal things right away, and they didn't have to do that. Just to really be as welcoming and open as possible is really important and unique about DAP, and should be continued and built upon, because there was no other resource like that.
What a powerful story from a powerful individual. Jesse's story highlights DAP's trauma-informed approach that affirms rather than judges the experiences of individuals in their programs, giving them the space to both grieve and heal.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's invite Emerthini back in to talk about the greater context of DAP's work and see how the organization is responding to some of the most significant challenges our communities have faced in these last 20 months or so.
Hi.
Hi. Well,
So we were talking about the impact of COVID on what has happened in the domestic violence field. And what we saw was an increase in the number of individuals that were really struggling with domestic violence. And we also saw a reduction in victim survivors that were able to reach out to us to access services. Our team did an amazing job of working together during this time to be able to roll out services that were virtual so that we could continue to provide services to clients during the pandemic. And it really took the entire team to be able to provide those services, and our donors and our grantors to be able to give us access to funds to be able to provide the technology that was needed at that time.
How's that worked for the participants? Are there any things, changes that you think might continue past COVID?
I think it's a great question. There was a lot of challenges in setting up virtual services at first. However, it's really created more access to services. So clients are not struggling with being able to get into our programs. We have victim survivors that have been able to get access to advocacy services that normally wouldn't be able to do that. It's also been possible for folks to be able to access services without having a risk to their finances, to their employment, to childcare, and we've been able to serve a broader demographic.
and that's so important, of course, because this last few months has been so challenging for so many people, and the relationships look so different. And it really goes to show how important it is to support the work that DAP is doing. Arethane, can you share with us about how you and the organization plan to see this work grow and better meet the needs of our communities?
Yeah, I think it all starts with understanding what DAP participants and those in the community are experiencing. Between COVID and the racial trauma that we've experienced as a community, people are tired, they're hurt, and they're uncertain. There have been a rise in domestic violence and in community violence. Response rates from systems have decreased, and local domestic abuse agencies have really struggled to meet the increased demands for services with current staffing, the employment situation that we're all seeing all over the country, and due to limited funding streams. At DAP, we've turned away over 190 people who requested our services this year alone, and we are one of many organizations.
Wow, having to turn away so many people seems like it would kind of compound the need for DAP's services. So what's DAP's approach to addressing those needs and how they impact current and future program participation?
Yeah, I think in addition to needing more resources, we've also realized the need to do our own internal work to better meet the needs of the community. So over the past several years, we as an organization have had to face some hard truths about who we are, how we serve, where we put our resources, and the role that we play within the larger landscape of the domestic violence intervention and prevention work. What has been empowering and hope building for us is that many of us within the domestic violence space, as well as some systems, have chosen to look, to see, and to name our truths and engage in the scary conversation of what's next. And it's thanks to the community and to their push for accountability and change that folks are looking. In the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, there have been additional murders of Black men and women, a rise in anti-Asian sentiments and anti-Semitism, and beyond that, we also see ongoing violence and inequities that don't result in a physical death, but can lead to generational trauma. There is a parallel to what we see in the domestic violence world when it comes to the impact of emotional and psychological violence being downplayed despite its deep impact on the victim. And that's why at DAP we have a commitment to ourselves to understand the intersection of race, gender, sexuality, and systemic issues that can compound trauma that our program participants experience. And this has led to both painful and beautiful discussions, as well as solid action towards making change when it comes to how we create safe spaces for victim survivors, and the importance of humanizing folks that use violence in order to truly support everyone in the family. There's a movement and investment to keep folks that use harm in community and connected to services that are going to provide stability and change in behaviors versus continuing to solely focus on punishment as a solution to domestic violence.
And what's your pathway to create that type of change?
I think a way for us to really realize this vision is to continue to listen to the community, listen to the voices of victim survivors, listen to the voices of children, listen to the voices of folks that have struggled to be safe within themselves and their families, so that when we move forward, it's really rooted in community-based services and supports community-based solutions. It also means that we as a community need to do our own work to understand ways in which we engage in harm so that we can do better in supporting change and creating safety that's actually effective for the families that we work with.
It's really impressive to see all the thought and emotion that you put into this and moving forward. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about DAP tonight?
Yeah, DAP is a wonderful organization, and we have been known for our innovation. We couldn't do that without our community stakeholders, our thought partners, and especially without our program participants, who are our biggest drivers for change. We are really excited about new initiatives that are going to be coming out in the next year, which are going to include increasing our culturally specific services, a focus on increasing the use of therapy that addresses trauma in the body, improved evaluation so that we know what's working and what's not working, and deeper partnerships with our community members so that we can work, learn, get resourced, and grow together.
Such incredible work, Arethane. Thank you for sharing that with us. And this sounds like a good time to share where we are with the community investment in DAP. So far, we've raised $100,414 in support. And remember that your donation will be matched dollar for dollar by our generous donors, Dave Murphy and Kelly Vosberg. You can make your donation by texting Healing 2021 to 41444.
Let me introduce you to Obadiah now. Obadiah participated in DAP's interventional prevention program for folks who have or are struggling with using violence in their relationships. Like all of us, learning takes time, and Obadiah is on the path to learning.
There was a lot of things that were going on in my life that needed some new direction, some things that I needed to change my attitude on, and a lot of things I needed to learn about myself. I've been a pretty angry dude internally angry for a lot of years. I was in a domestic abuse situation with my ex-partner, my son's mother, and I knew before courts ever got involved with it, before that ever was a thing, I knew that if things got explosive between the two of us, and then they never had up until this point, that I needed to search out some guidance, some sort of help to like get me away from what I was turning into. I don't know, DAP was a program that I needed in that part of my life. In that moment, it was just like this. If I didn't do it, it would have been ordered upon me to go to DAP, and I knew that this was something that I needed, regardless of a court telling me that I needed it. And so it just kind of perfect timing, kind of a perfect terrible storm in my life that brought me here. But I think it was kind of interesting seeing the kind of people that would come in for the program, and their different, seeing their attitudes shift over the time frame was interesting, because you get people in that were court ordered to be here, and they didn't want to be here, but as soon as some of those barriers, some of those walls start getting broken down, you could see it I could see it in myself, and I could definitely see it in other people's eyes, that something had changed, their attitude of being here. They didn't seem like it was so much forced anymore. And honestly, like for me, it was kind of this therapeutic session where like it wasn't going out to the bar, but I still got to sit down in a room full of a bunch of dudes and kind of hash our stuff out. When you see somebody on social media that, like, man, if only somebody would have been able to step in, if only somebody would have been able to talk to them, if they were only able to. DAP could have been that. DAP can be that. I can only imagine that DAP has saved a lot of lives before things got as bad as they could have gotten. You guys helped me get my kid back. And that changed my world, and that means the world to me.
What a moving and inspiring story from Obadiah, who really highlights the importance of DAP's work to serve the whole family, including those who have used abusive behaviors. That kind of holistic healing can end cycles of violence that impact families for generations.
As we close out this powerful and important evening, I want to thank you all for joining us from your homes. We know that tuning in virtually can be a bit exhausting, but we know that the work here at DAP must continue, and we couldn't do it without your support. As we tabulate the final total for the night, I want to thank our sponsors for their support in making tonight's gift go directly to DAP's clients and services.
We also want to thank DAP storytellers, volunteers, board, staff, and supporters, including the $15,000 that matching gift by Kelly Vosberg and Dave Murphy.
And our total so far is $104,893. Of course, that wouldn't be possible without you. It's not too late to donate. You can still do that right now at this hour. Remember, your donations will be matched. And you can do that again by texting Healing 2021 to 41444 to support our participants and programs.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, and have a great night.